Tommy, thank you for joining us here on the
My
FVR
pleasure.
Oral History Project. What was your first encounter with FVR?
This was way before he became president. This was during the time of President Cory. He was defense minister, and I could not recall the exact incident, but that was the time when I met him. And then over the years during the Cory administration, he was defense minister, and I had an opportunity to be with him during the revolution. I went to Camp Crame the to the floor where he was together with the Senator JPE, and it was FVR who was saying that, you know, the roof here is just metal. Ano, if they bomb us, patay tayong lahat dito, gano'n. And we were, I think, on the third or fourth floor, gano'n.
Is that why you had to transfer?
No, no,
Or you had already transferred? Remember they had to move from one camp to
Krame
another?
to, ano, basta, we were on the, going to EDSA, going to Caloocan, the building on the left side. I don't know if it's Krame or
But you hadn't met FVR that time, but you were with him.
I was with him. I was with him. Even before that, I had the chance to meet him, so we were familiar with each other already. So he knew me and I knew him. So we were in friendly terms already. You know.
What
But
did
he
you-
was general and I was just 1986. I was 40 years old. You know.
But what were you doing at that time?
I was running my, I was involved in a family business. I was the executive vice president of our cement plant and our shipping company. So I was in pure private business.
Any interactions or some encounters with FVR during the martial law era?
During the martial law era, let me see. I cannot remember anything during the martial law era. No. But during the time of President Marcos, I met him together with General Ver in the office of Marcos, and we had a problem, and we were called on a meeting, and that was the time when I met the generals. No? Oh.
And he was there as
He was there. He was there.
PC, no?
He was there as the head of the PC. Yeah.
What were you doing during martial law in terms of politics? Were you active?
No, no, not at all. I was running our cement plant and the shipping company, and I was most of the time in Mindanao.
Okay. But you had already close ties with Cory Aquino.
No,
Not even.
I did not know her.
Ah,
I was introduced to Cory Aquino during the campaign. During the campaign for her presidency, she visited Iligan, and she had a rally in Iligan City, and the schedule called for her to go back to Cagayan de Oro. So I told her, go back to Cagayan de Oro at night. So might as well stay here in our guest house. So we were in the guest house where she spent the night, and I must have drank a couple of beers. So I told her, you know, if we are successful, I'm willing to devote 2 years of my life in your service, in your government. So that was it. Natapos na yun. And then she became, then came the EDSA revolution. And the night after, after the end of the hostilities, no, I received a phone call. The aide said, the president. I said, President Cory. Sabi niya, Tommy, you remember Iligan? Sabi ko, yes, Mr. President. Oh, you're it. Ganon.
So she didn't forget.
No, she did not forget. And that was it. I did not really know her, but aside from that connection, I did not know the Aquinos. No?
And then this is to start work at the Department of Trade or
Yes,
Ministry of Trade.
yes. She asked me to report the next day to Joe Concepcion, and that was it. No.
Then, okay, so we move on to the beginning of the FVR period. Were you active in FVR's presidential campaign?
Not at all, because I was serious as a bureaucrat, and I was serious in my job as managing head of the Board of Investments. So there was very little political activity for me.
And then you stayed on?
I stayed on
into the FVR period?
The last day of Cory Aquino as president, I tendered my resignation, and apparently it was one of many. So my understanding was Cory Aquino called the FVR, said, I have a lot of resignations on my desk. So you will be without anybody tomorrow, ganon. So the day he became president after Luneta, he issued one of the first orders is to freeze all resignations, and I never got my resignation until after I was allowed 3 years into her presidency, into his presidency. Yeah. So I served for 4 years of Cory Aquino, and then 3 years of FVR.
How was the Philippine economy at the time, so at the end of the Cory era and in the beginning of the FVR period?
There was that euphoria, for the Filipino people as well as the business during the early Cory years. But after 3 years, things started turning bad. So when FVR took over, the economy was not as good as expected. So during the early years of Ramos, we had to work on rebuilding the interest of the Filipino business community as well as the foreign business community in the Philippines. And I would say that we were quite successful in getting interest again.
When FVR first sat down as
Yes.
president, it was still, you'd say, describe it as a negative. There was a sort of a negative view of the Philippines.
No, the Philippine economy was the euphoria was already way down, and we had to start rebuilding again, getting people interested in the Philippines again, putting the Philippines on the map again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in the first, well, you stayed on for 3 more years.
3 years, yeah.
In the FVR period. How did the perception of the Philippines and even your own perception of the economy change from the time you sort of resumed office under FVR now, and then the time that you were finally allowed to retire?
At the end of the term of President Aquino, the interest was not as big as great as when we started. So again, as I said, we had to do a lot of rebuilding, a lot of confidence building. I would say that during the first year of FVR, we were able to get the interest of the business community again, be it the US, be it Taiwan, or even especially Japan.
Now, you were instrumental in crafting the economic development plans of the FVR period, especially in the area of investment. how would you describe his vision for business and the economy? And then, how did you participate in that sort of that vision of his?
Actually, in the case of President Ramos, uh, we were given a free hand. No? We were given a free hand. The secretary at that time was Roy Navarro.
Roy Navarro, yeah.
He replaced Jocon. Uh, I would say that after the first year of the term of President Ramos, we were back in in the top 10 of the interesting countries here in Asia.
And then, how about local business? How are they participating also in this in this development effort? No?
I would, speaking for myself and the Alcantara group, things really changed, no, during the FVR during the FVR days. Um, Confidence was back. Things were booming. We were we were. I would say that we were back in the list of countries to be visited by foreign investors, particularly Japan, Taiwan, and I would say the U.S. The U.S. was late in coming. It was Japan and Taiwan that figured prominently during the early years of FVR.
And then, well, you had already resigned at a certain point, no?
3 years after.
3 years after, but
I was allowed to leave.
you're
3 years
allowed
after,
to.
yes.
You're given leave.
Yeah.
But you were still active in business
Yes.
after that. So at the end of the FVR term, which was 1998,
Yes.
how would you see that? How do you describe the whole transformation of the Philippine economy, and maybe how was business at that point in time, that the end of the FVR term?
During the second or third year after Cory into the FVR administration, we were running short of power, and our group saw power as a potential business area that we could get ourselves involved in. So during the early years of FVR, we were able to start our first power plant in Iligan, followed by a second plant in General Santos, and we were able to get power back in the Philippines during the first 3 years of FVR.
So it was a big challenge, no?
Very big challenge
the
because we were having brownouts at
That's
that
right.
time.
I still remember that half
Yeah.
days,
Yeah, yeah.
no power. Now, so the challenge, aside from the power, was also trying to attract investment. You joined FVR on trips in these first 3 years of
Yes,
this term.
yes.
How would you describe these overseas trips, and how was the reception to these missions that you had?
Particularly in Japan, we had to turn down requests for participation in the seminars,
Okay,
in the investor
For Japanese
conferences
companies who
for
wanted
Japanese
to-
companies who wanted here. So was Taiwan. Taiwan was, at that time, China is not China today.
Yes.
So Taiwan was prominent. I would say Taiwan was the China at that time.
Right. So
And-
yeah, China's economy wasn't that
Yes.
strong yet, no?
Yes. So it was China and Taiwan that figured prominently in most of the investment missions that came here, and I would say that Japan and Taiwan were the major destinations of the Philippine officials in selling the Philippines.
Is there a special reason why there's a special relationship with Taiwan at that time?
Well, FVR's father was at one time the ambassador to Taiwan before, and he was familiar with a lot of Taiwanese businessmen, and I would say that because of that familiarity, we were able to bring in very prominent Taiwanese businessmen. No? You can look at China Trust. You can look at the Taiwan Taiwan Electrical Corporation organization, and many others. No? Yeah.
And you yourself are very active, no, in that our bilateral relations with Taiwan.
Yes, yes. During the after I resigned from government, I was appointed as chairman of our de facto embassy in Taiwan, and I served there for I think middle of the end of the term of FVR, well into I did not serve the government during ERAP years, but during GMA's time, I served again.
In the MECO.
In MECO, yeah.
Now, there's this concept of Team Philippines, and I understand you were they call you frequent flyer with that program. No?
Yes.
That was even beyond your government stint. How would you describe this Team Philippines concept and how it developed? No.
Well,
through the
in
FVR
foreign
years?
trips, I made it a point not to join the official plane because being an undersecretary, I was relegated to the back of the plane, and at the same time, I had to work with the president in front
Yes.
and the cabinet members in front. We, the undersecretaries and the other assistants, had to work and prepare for the very short visit of our destinations, so, be it in the U.S., Japan, or even the European countries.
So you had to, but you had to go back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Up and down the plane. Who else were joining these Team Philippines trips? Were there private sector also?
The private sector, the private sector figured prominently here, but the Philippines was on top of the list of the foreign investors. So, being in government, we were, I would say, we were the darlings of the business community, foreign business community. So.
Then you also joined provincial trips, provincial visits.
Yes,
of
yes,
FVR.
yes.
What were your impressions of those when you're going around the country, looking at, I guess, developing business in the regions? No?
I had being from Mindanao. Most of the trips of FVR to Mindanao, particularly Davao, Cagayan de Oro, Zamboanga, I participated in many of these provincial trips. So.
And then, Tommy, you're from Mindanao, and you brought up Mindanao. What are your thoughts on Mindanao as I guess a potential, an area of growth? How you treated it during the FVR period, and then I wanted to ask also about the BIMP IAGA. I think where you're trying to develop also there.
Even when I was in BOI, I considered the businessmen from Luzon as foreign investors. They have a very negative picture of Mindanao.
Yes.
So I would say that being from Mindanao, looking at it selfishly, I would say that Mindanao is one of the best kept secrets among foreign as well as local investors.
So even up to today, no?
Well, not today. You have the Gokong Ways are there. You have Ramon Ang there already. You have a lot of homegrown Mindanao businessmen who are all over the place in Mindanao.
And now a Davaoeño sitting in
Davao,
Malacanang.
Davaoeña sitting, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about FVR, the man, his character. What was he up close and personal? What was your impression of him, and how would you describe him in so many words?
Well, one of the impressions I have is that the DTI team or the cabinet members that I served, including myself, had the trust and confidence of both Cory and FVR. So to a large extent, we were allowed a free hand, no, in running our departments and in promoting the Philippines. At that time, in the case of FVR, he had priorities other than business. I would say that between Roy Navarro and myself, and even in the case of Joe Concepcion, we were trusted by both Cory and FVR. So we were allowed the free hand to run things. No?
Okay. But like when you go on trips, of course you'd be called to work closely with the president
Yes.
for his speeches and all that. How was it? How was it? When you're there interacting with FVR regarding these business conferences and visits.
Well, we would prepare his speeches. We would make sure that his CSR, yung complete staff
Yes.
work, was finished. There are times when I would bring to him, to the president, memorandum, for example, and he would say, have you done your CSW? And I would present him a thick folder. He would not even read it. He would just look at it. Oh, so you did your job. Okay, I will sign without reading it.
With his red pen.
With his red pen.
How was he as our salesman? No, was he a good salesman, up to par?
Yeah, he had that. He had meron siyang parating theme eh. Yung sinasabi niyang go, go, go. Yung parang gano'n.
And at the time, you had the Philippines 2000.
Philippines
at that
2000,
time, no?
yeah.
What are your impressions on his work ethic? No?
I must have gotten older than just 3 years serving him because of the work involved.
Yeah. How would you compare that sort of the intensity of work during the Ramos period versus your early years in the Aquino administration?
In the case of Aquino, we had our priority was the debt restructuring, and after that, during the early Ramos years, our priority was getting the economy larger than what it was when FVR started.
Okay. But so, I guess under the FVR period, would you say the time and your work was sort of the pace had picked up because of his work style?
Very much, yeah.
And would you say this work style had influenced the rest of the team, no, in your quest to get more investments, to improve the economy.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah.
Right. And then, I guess, when you look back, no, and you reflect on your memories of those times working very closely with FVR, what comes to mind, or what do you feel?
I miss that. Yeah. Uh, there were times when I thought I knew what he wanted. Many things remain unsaid. I would just do things, and I must have captured his style. No? So in many cases, uh, there were a lot of activities that I would do on my own, which would receive his approval. No?
Do you still keep in touch with FVR?
Not as much as before, but I would come to this office few and far between. But I would, I still miss the guy. No?
How do you describe the FVR legacy for Philippine business and the Philippine economy?
Legacy. Uh, Compared with the FVR years, compared with the core years, are different. No? In the case of President Ramos, he did not have to worry about the growth of the economy because it was already growing. He did not have to worry about the transformation from the Marcos years to the Aquino years. It was already a given when he entered the scene. So there were the concentration during the Ramos years were more on real economic development instead of security. No?
Were there reforms that you felt were during the Ramos era that were key to really moving the Philippine economy?
I would say that rural development was first and foremost in his agenda. No? Although we were not as much involved as other departments were in rural development, I would say that during the time of Ramos, he always had one of his eyes focused on the provinces and in rural areas.
And finally, Tommy, I guess what would be your message to the next generation based on your memory and your impressions of FVR? What does FVR have as a vision or a message to the younger generation?
I would say that the work ethic of the man is something that should be studied very closely. That his get up and go is something that has to be emulated and followed. And I would say that FVR would always be enshrined in the Philippine economy now.
Well, thank you very much, Tommy.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today.